Welcome. This is just a tutorial to show how to speed up Drupal 7 by using various modules and installing them into a CentOS system. Okay, let's get started. So this basically is just a virtual machine that I've set up just so you can use it for this particular tutorial. Just waiting for it to start. Okay, so just going to log in. So basically I've already set it up and done the updates on it. So basically to follow or to get a list of the commands that I will be using, if you just go to the macpczone.co.uk website, then click on articles, and then you'll see there'll be an article in there about speeding up Drupal 7. So if you just click on that, and in there you'll see the list of commands that I'll be using. So the first thing to do is to update or to add the repository for EPEL so that some of the extra things needed can be installed. And then basically there's what we'll be installing next is just all of the requirements for basically this demonstration. So I've also included C groups, because basically what's happened is that when I first tried to run the Drupal on CentOS on my machine, it just seemed a bit too quick, so it was harder to notice the difference. So what I've had to do is to use C groups to actually slow down the Apache inside the virtual machine. Okay, and as you see, I'm just using the standard versions of PHP and modules that come with the standard CentOS 6 system. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is just to edit the files relating to C groups so that basically what this will do is, rather than Apache being able to use up 100% of the CPU on this machine when it's running, it's only going to actually be able to use 10%. Okay, so now I'll just be using the NT-sysv just to make sure that certain services will be running. So also enable the Apache and the MySQL. Yeah, that should do. Okay, so just give it a quick reboot, then just wait for it to come back. Okay, so just log back into the machine. Okay, and then what we do is just go to the Drupal website. So and then we just I'm just going to copy it straight into the on the command line, because I just find it more convenient that way. And I'm just going to put it straight into. So rather than creating a virtual host, just put it straight into the document root. So at the moment, the site that I'm just using, will just, because it's the main virtual host. At the beginning, all you will get is the standard Apache CentOS test page. So now we just copy the files over. But we only have to copy the ones we need, so we don't need all these extra ones. And web config is only for if you're using Internet Information Server. And then basically to make the installation of modules and this installation and the module installation more easier, we just change a couple of directories to the Apache user. And I know some people might say it's not that secure, but you're better off running Drupal on a dedicated machine or VPS anyway, so it's not really going to make much difference. Okay, so now once that's up, we should have Drupal should be ready. So if you just select the minimal install, and as you see, the requirements have all been met. Yeah, it's a good idea to actually put in the details for the database first. Okay. Okay, I'll just be filling in just basic details just to get this part out of the way. Not sure why it thinks this password is fair, but you know, that's how it goes. This is just so you don't get the annoying messages. Okay, so we're in. So the next thing is basically I have a further down. You can see that I've actually got a backup file just to that are generated using the devel sort of generate. But in order for it to work properly, I just have to install these other modules as well. So I'm just going to quickly do that now. One good thing about they've added to Drupal 7 is that it does make it quick to actually add modules. Okay, so basically to be able to install modules directly, just have to turn on the update manager, because this is one of the things of Drupal is once you turn the update manager on, it'll now keep giving you annoying messages, but you actually need it in order to be able to install the modules in an easy way. So I suppose you could just install the modules and then just disable it again, just so it doesn't keep putting those messages at the top. Now you might think there would be a tick box where you could get rid of the annoying messages, but no, they've made it very difficult. Okay, so now basically to get hold of that file, it's actually at the bottom of the article, and it's quite a big file. So it's actually, if you have access to the command line, it's a much better way of installing it, unless you're prepared to actually wait the length of time it takes for PHP to do it, to upload it in PHP MyAdmin. First I've got to download it. Okay, this is compressed with 7-zip, so that's why I installed P7-zip earlier. Just because of how big it actually is. Okay, and actually before I install this, the other thing that I need to do, because if you try to install such a big file without actually adjusting MySQL, it will actually take forever to load. Okay, and just so it writes the new log files on restart, you can actually delete them now. Okay, so now we're ready to import the file. Okay, this will take a bit of time to actually to install. I mean, although one thing I did find was that it doesn't actually, when your MySQL is tuned properly, it doesn't actually make that much of a difference how many nodes you put in, how quickly it can actually, the front page can be retrieved, but this was the amount I did at the time, so I'm just sort of, I suppose, sticking with it. But I mean, you can fast forward this bit. It doesn't take that long, but obviously nothing much will happen until it finishes. Okay, so that's finished importing. So now if we go back to the site, we'll go back to the home page. There we have it. So now we have a whole heap of nodes installed. course the MySQL is tuned, so it shouldn't, even having this many nodes shouldn't really slow it down by that much. Okay, so what we can do is just give it a quick test to see what it's performing like at the moment. So I've used just Apache Bench for this and just running it from a terminal just on the main machine. And as you can see, even with 100 requests, it's taking a very long time. So you can imagine someone who set up a Drupal website on a server, and especially one that's a bit old, because as I said at the beginning, I actually slowed down the Apache, because you can actually see that. Because if you notice, the HTTPD processes, they're hardly using any CPU, because basically the C groups is limiting it to a total of 10% of the CPU, and that is for all of the processes. Okay, so as you can see, it took a very long time in each request. So it took 112 seconds, so each request was taking pretty much a little bit over a second to process, which some people might think isn't that long, but as you can see, if your site gets hit by a lot of people, it can make a difference. So now, okay, so the next thing, well, what I'm going to do anyway, I was thinking of whether I should do it or not, but I might as well, since I did actually do it the first time when I did, I actually went through this tutorial. And that's actually to just change the theme so that it's, although it doesn't seem as if this theme is that much heavier than the current one that's on there, but it's just that because it has more JavaScripts in it and CSS files. Okay, so you just have to download that straight to the server again. Okay, so now that's installed, you can just go and enable it. Okay, so now we have it looking a bit different. And, well, I won't run the Apache, well, shouldn't I? Okay, let's see what difference it makes. It'll take a while, so you can fast forward this part again, or I might even, so it's likely this one should take roughly the same amount of time, because it is actually the PHP that takes up most of the processing, with the CSS and JavaScript not making that much difference because the network connection is so fast. It's only the CPU that is actually being limited. Okay, so interestingly enough, it seems to actually be fractionally quicker, but I don't know. But anyway, we'll continue. And the easiest way to find out what the difference is really just to try it yourself. It takes a bit of time because the processor is so slow down to actually see which is quicker. But we can see that roughly it does take a second for the page to load. And so changing the theme shouldn't really make that much difference, although you can see when you see the amount of that is transferred, yeah, there's not much difference really. Okay, so basically what we can see is that by default, Drupal is very slow on a slow server. And so the first thing that you should always do to actually speed it up is, of course, to turn on the cache that it comes with. Because that's just a very basic thing. Of course, when you turn the cache on, it does mean if you're developing anything, it can, the changes sometimes don't appear. But when you see well, anyway, I'll turn it on and you'll see the difference that it makes. Okay, so turn on the caching. So if you save that, so this is without aggregation. So all this does is cache all the generated pages in the database. So now if you run the Apache Bench again, and this time you can see it's much quicker now. Didn't have to wait as long as before. And this time each request was taking just a little bit over under 300 milliseconds anyway. So we've already got almost I don't know, 4 times, a little over 4 times speed up just by clicking 2 buttons. And you'll find that when you turn on the aggregation, that can help a little bit. So if you give that another try, but you probably notice it shouldn't really make that much difference because the network connection itself is so quick. Yeah, see, you could almost say it's slowed things down, but it looks as if that was because, yeah, but anyway, because the thing about the aggregation, it actually takes PHP, it has to do a bit of PHP processing to do the aggregation, but rather than sticking on that, what I'll do is move on to the next one, which is to install Memcache and APC. Okay, so now with with Memcache, what it does is it puts some of the things from the cache into the into memory, stores it in memory. But one thing about if you're using CentOS 6 is that the but anyway, I'll show you. Yeah, it's probably easier if I just show you what happens rather than, because I'm sure that there's other people who've come across this. Or anyway, well, rather than, yeah, there's no really point using up the time. So basically, I'll just explain it. What happens is if you install the Memcache that comes with CentOS 6, it's version 3.0.6, and what will happen is Drupal will just give you an error saying that it won't work, the actual Memcache extension or module. And so after all that, what you do, you just have to basically install the actual 308 version. So I'll just do that straight off it, because the reason why I had to install the extra development utilities is because it PHP basically needs to compile it. So I'll just let it run through that. Okay, and so now we just have to make some edits to the Memcache service itself. So just increase the memory size to 128 megabytes, but I found it doesn't really seem to use that much. But if you have a site which is quite huge and has a lot of users on it, then you'd actually probably need to increase that to something more. But then of course you will be using a decent server where you can increase the memory, because there's no point trying to run Drupal on a server that's too weak to handle a lot of users. Okay, so now we have to install the Memcache extension. Or module, actually, even though it's just an extension. Sure what happened there. Okay, so I just clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah. Okay, so now before I enable it, I just have to make some changes. So basically it's to change the settings.php file of Drupal so that it now uses the Memcache for its cache rather than the database. And then also have to create a configuration file, because whenever you install a extension with Pecola, it doesn't actually put a config file in to activate the to activate it, so you have to put one in yourself. And then finally we also installed APC, so just check that. It already has, because it was installed with the package management system, it already has a config file there, but we can just edit it so that it uses a bit more memory on the system. Of course, you find you want to increase this a lot more if you have a lot more users. Okay, so now that should be running. So now if we give that a try, to see what Apache thinks of it, or Apache Bench, sorry, thinks of it. Okay, it doesn't seem to be much change. Oh, yeah, there wouldn't be because I hadn't enabled the module. So what I've actually done is, yeah, the cache just wasn't okay, and it's always good when that's green because that usually means it's installed properly. But we can just check with the status report and it will tell you how things are. And yeah, it looks as if, yeah, Memcache is okay. So, and yes, you've got this particular error here, but I've noticed this message always appears because basically Drupal's just upset because you haven't allowed it to phone home so that it can put your some information about you installed onto their website. But that doesn't have any effect on how your website functions. So let's just try that again. Okay, so now 102 milliseconds. So that's quite a bit of a speed up, but when this run happened, of course, it had to actually fill the cache. So if you try one more time, there you go. See now, 18 milliseconds. So now the website is actually performing like a proper server should be performing. And this is even at a tenth of the normal speed that the CPU should be running at. So basically, we've gone from a 1 second loading time to an 18 or just over 18 millisecond loading time, which can make a lot of difference. And just so because things have sped up so much now, we can even increase the number of requests. You can actually see how quickly it did those 100 requests, and when you compare that to how long it was taking before. So just by these few changes, we've turned this Drupal website from a snail, well, I suppose into an eagle, really, although I can't think of any animals like a snail that can go that fast. And see, this time the average is 28 milliseconds, but you'll find that it does seem to even out. But that certainly is a lot quicker than it was before. So if you want your Drupal website to stop crawling, these are a few things that you can do in order to make that much of a difference, even if you're running on a slow server. Now for the next part, this part you don't really have to try because this is like the difficult bit, but since I went to the trouble of doing it before, I might as well take you through it. And basically there's another Drupal module that you can install, which is called it's the advanced aggregation module, and it also uses another module that has allows it to do threaded HTTP requests. So I'm gonna, if you're fine with the performance at the moment, probably the easiest thing to do is to stop now and just go and optimize your server and give it that turbocharger to get it up to speed. But this module, as far as I know, it can make some differences with how quick the page loads in your browser. So what I'm going to do is, just as an addition to this, or I might even split this into a part 2, I'll see how long it takes. But this is effectively just a continuation, just because I did it before and managed to get through it. So I'll just carry on now. So this, first you need to install the this HTTP parallel request library. And actually you'll soon see why it would be a good idea to actually give up at this point. Because when you read about this advanced aggregation, it seems to have a lot of features. So I can understand why people would be tempted to give it a try. But I thought, since what happened when I tried to install it, it is worth actually showing you what can happen if you do try to over-optimize your site. Okay, so it has quite a few features, and you can turn, if you know what they mean, it can be worth turning some of them on. But usually the proper way to do this would be to turn them on one at a time. But because I'm in a hurry, I'm just going to do it the way that you shouldn't do it and just turn everything on in one go. But anyway, this isn't a production website, but definitely if you're running this on a production website, you would not do this. You would just turn them on one at a time. Well, actually, you wouldn't install this on a production website. What you'd have to do is install it on the development website. And then once well, you'll see anyway. So you install it on your development website. And then just check that it's Well, as you can see, the site seems to have slowed down, so that can already tell you that something's happening. And this is one of those things that can happen where everything is going fine, and then you just install one module Okay, well actually it happened differently from before. Ah, there you go. Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Yeah, so now you've installed advanced aggregation and everything seems so fine, but suddenly your site is broken, and that's amazing. You think, how did that happen? And this is one of those things that can happen when you're developing on any CMS, where it looks like it's just a harmless module, and how can anything happen? But this particular problem, it actually does it. It explains to you what the problem is, even though you would have loved it if the author of the module actually mentioned it when the installation. That there should have been a message saying that how your site could break. Obviously, if you read the documentation, it does actually mention the problems that can happen. And actually, if you're wondering why the site's taking so long to load, it's actually because if you have a look in Firebug, when you go to the network panel, and then reload, yeah, you see there's a whole heap of 404 errors, and that's the reason why things have slowed down so much. And of course, to solve the mystery of where do all these 404s come from, you just look through your the status report, and of course the module's telling you that you need to enable clean URLs. So it seems as if that's the easy way out. Just go in, find clean URLs, enable it, and everything's fine. But then you go to your configuration, and of course now you have to sit and wait because of all the 404 errors. So now your site, which once was flying, is now suddenly down to a crawl, and you wonder, why did you do it? And this is one of the things that can happen. But as you see, sometimes it does sort of recover, but it doesn't matter. This is still it's still basically a problem, because what you have to do is try to enable a clean URL. So if you run the test, of course the test will fail. And the reason why it's failing is because basically you have to the htaccess file so basically the default setup for Apache doesn't allow the default setup doesn't allow htaccess files to be read. So of course the problem with advanced ag and the HTTP threaded library is that they both require clean URLs to even work at all. So you'd think that the module itself wouldn't load without clean URLs, but no, it'll load and then take down your CSS basically. So what we have to do is to adjust Apache, the configuration, so that basically it's to get the htaccess files to work. That's what we're trying to do. So basically in the document, the default is for allow override to be none. So if you just change that to all, and we don't have to worry because you should really be, like I said before, you should really be running Drupal on its own server. So you're going to be the only one breaking into it anyway. Okay, so now we just have to restart Apache for that to take effect. And so now if you go back in here and then run the test, it still fails. Now you'd think that at that point it's all over, but no, yet again it's just another, well, you could call it a bug, I don't know, but basically if you take away the question mark and the Q and the equals, now if this takes you to the checkbox, that means if this takes you to the screen with the checkbox, that means it is actually working even though the test failed. Okay. Oh, right, I see. I edited the wrong parts. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. That's the other thing about when you have to edit the Apache config file. You do have to be careful about where you type. Okay, so we're back here again. So we run the test and it still failed. So you think that when it's failed that really is the case, and you could imagine some people sitting there forever wondering what's going on, but apparently all you have to do is to change the URL and there you go. So because the tick box is there, that means it's actually going to work, but for some reason it's just yet another bug that it seems they still haven't fixed even in this late version. And once you click the tick, save configuration, and now you should find that the site is back to speed again. So yeah, so all of those 404 errors have gone because now the so we can just check that. Although actually some of them still seem to be there. Okay, no, that's better. Alright, yeah, so now because the clean URLs are working, so now the aggregation actually works properly. So now that takes us on to, well, what we can do is just do a quick check to see if that's actually made any difference, but don't be too surprised. So it's 28 milliseconds before. So the first run will be slow because of the aggregation process. Okay, so see, it's slowed down a bit. So, but if you try again, right? See 29. See, so it's almost as if by installing that module, we've slowed the site down fractionally. So this is one of those modules where to know whether to install it, it requires testing with the browser. So Apache Bench isn't really enough to know if, if you should actually be using it or not. You have to actually use more advanced testing techniques. But now we come on to the final part, which of course is, you'll read through the status file and you'll see when it's talking about the JavaScript compressor. Now it gives you the option. It says you should either disable it or you should choose select a compressor. So if you go to the settings page and we look to see the options, now all the options which you can see in there, these are, as far as I can tell, these are PHP versions, and that's why the speed is so slow, because 1,000 milliseconds is basically 1 second it's going to take. And yeah, as you can read here, it says that there's a much faster C version which can operate at 2 milliseconds. Now, when you see a speed difference like that, with 2 and 1,000, immediately you jump up and think, oh, that's wonderful. But basically, this JSMin PHP extension, it's actually an extension that has to be compiled in. So you'd think that all you have to do is just basically get a hold of it and download it. So what we'll do is, let's see what happens if we actually try to do that. So we install. So basically, we're going to use the Pecola command to try and install this extension to PHP. And so when we run it, oh, what does it say? It says that we need a version of PHP greater than 5.4. And of course, we know that CentOS 6 only ships with 5.3. And so the only way to actually get a newer version is to update. So basically, you're not going to be able to get JSMin unless you're willing to update the PHP. So now this is where the next adventure starts, to see about actually trying to update PHP. Now it seems you'd think it should be a nice easy thing, but well, let's find out. Okay, so this is the RPM from Remy, and basically he prepares PHP, other files, updated applications, etc. for CentOS 6, and well, actually other versions of CentOS as well. And this particular, so basically what this is this is the file which installs the repository, and all that really does is just saves us having to go in and actually edit the files for the repositories, and so he's made this convenient file available. But by default, his repository is disabled, so we have to go in there to his file and actually edit it to enable it. But the important thing is we're not after the actual other files that are on offer there, because they can conflict with the files on the system. All we actually want is just the PHP 5.5. So in this section where you can see it says Remy-PHP 5.5, if we only enable this part, then it will not mess with the rest of the system. And the only thing that will be installed, the only thing that will be changed will be the actual PHP that is used. Right, so what we do now is to update all of the PHP components that are on the system. And what I'll do is remove the old PHP files and extensions that were installed, and then install its own updated versions. And as you can see, once you install it, you don't get any support. You can only go to their forum. As you can see, there are lots of errors up, because as the old modules have been run with the new PHP, so of course it's complaining. Okay, so that's installed. And so now we just have to, because what happened before, we had to install Memcache manually, but now Remy actually has an up-to-date 3.0.8 version of the PHP extension. So it actually, if we'd installed this first, we wouldn't have had to go to the trouble of compiling the Memcache extension the first time. Okay, so now if we try to install JSMin again, because I've checked and it doesn't seem as if JSMin is available from his repository, so we still have to install it with Pecola, but this time it succeeds. So now, because it was installed with Pecola, yet again there will not be an ini file created, so we have to create one for it. And okay, I'm just checking. Right, yeah, what I'd forgot to do is I should have copied this line here, because this is what I needed. And all you have to do is just put it into the file. And that should be that. So now, if we restart Apache, so now if we go back to the site and then check to see what's available, refresh. And so now there you go. So now the JSMin extension has been installed, so now it's available as a compressor, and as you can see, you can see the reason why all the effort was put in just to get the difference between all these hundreds of milliseconds and 2 milliseconds. Because as you can expect, anyone who is after performance will always be able to plainly see that there is a big difference between them. Okay, so we enable those and save the configuration. But interestingly, notice that it seems as if the site is slow again. So we've gone to all that trouble to upgrade the PHP, install the JSMin, so we think that it should be happy days now. But it seems there might be something up, so let's see what happens now if we give it a quick test. So remember, our site at one time was blazing along even 18 milliseconds, and after we added a few extensions it slowed down a bit to 29 milliseconds, which isn't that much difference. It's not like you'd be able to actually tell the difference by looking at it. But now, after all that, we've suddenly ended up back at over 200 milliseconds. And now you think to yourself, what has just happened? How can you've upgraded things where you should have made things better, and it just seems to have gotten worse? So now's the time to do a little bit of investigation. It shouldn't take that long to do. So now I just have to make a quick adjustment, because I just need something from the devel module, because this is one of the reasons why the devel module comes in handy, because it saves you having to do certain things. So if I just move that to the first sidebar, just save that. So now if we go to PHP info, let's see if we can. Okay, so our PHP is 5.5.38, which is good. So we've got a nice new PHP installed. So you expect to get that extra performance that they're always promising. but we have to investigate to see why is everything slowed down. And what we'll find is that APC support is emulated. So we seem to have a problem there. And then we have APCU, which is only a user cache. And if we scroll down, we can see that we've got loads, all of our lovely extensions are still there. JSMin is there. It's installed, so we know that's working. Memcache is there, so that's functioning fine as well. Version 3.08. And MySQL ND if you want to use it. But as we scroll down, the thing that has gone missing is any and there you go. So you scroll to the end and there's no op cache, and that is the reason why things have suddenly slowed down, because by upgrading to PHP 5.5, what we've basically done is we've basically disabled APC, and as you can see, APC is obviously responsible for quite a lot of the performance. So let's go into let's go back to our slow site. And so the final thing we have to do is to get our opcode cache back. And to do that, we now, because APCs does not work with PHP 5, we instead have to use the Zend op cache, which is actually now, well, it's a part of PHP 5.6, but it's been officially developed, I think, since 5.4, but I think it works on 5.3 as well, if I remember. So there you go, and because it's installed via an RPM or by Yum, the configuration file's already been set up, so all we have to do is restart Apache, and then we go back to the site and give it another try. It still seems a bit slow. Well, it's sped up 162, but what's happened is because the cache needed to be filled, so try again. And there you go, the super speed is back at 11 milliseconds, that's impressive. So now, let's try again the 100. The reason I said that's impressive is because it's actually quicker than I was getting before. So let's try with 1,000. Let's see, because sometimes you might get that 11 and be very impressed with it, but it sometimes doesn't hold for a lot of requests. So let's see what the 1,000 does. Yeah, you can see sometimes it will pause longer and sometimes less. So that's another one of those mysteries that you'd have to solve to work out why some groups of requests are slower than others. But the end result, okay, so we're back to 25 milliseconds again. So it's yeah, there's always a reason why you can get such a quick speed sometimes, and then some is slow. I'll just do that one more time. Let's see. It probably will just, yeah, because you still get that same pause. So I think it'll do 25 again. Yeah, so 25. So you probably, yeah, so it looks like you find that that's pretty much what we're getting at the moment. But I know it sounds strange that I'm disappointed at a 25 millisecond page load speed, because I think there's a lot of websites out there who would love to have their pages loading that quickly. But basically, that is how you turn your Drupal website from a snail into a Formula One car, or well, well, not Formula One car, but obviously give it Formula One performance anyway. And you can imagine if you go to some of your clients and their website's loading that quick, and then of course they're going to think that you're some amazing developer to get it to run that quick. But obviously this site is quite empty. But the interesting thing is it is actually using, a theme that's not basic, and to get that sort of performance out of it, it shows that obviously Drupal, once you actually know how to use it, you can have a very sort of high performing site. And this is even without something like Varnish, or even running it on, through a reverse proxy, etc. Because obviously doing it like that is even quicker. But this is basically for people, obviously, who don't have the infrastructure, but you just want your site to be fast, even on low spec hardware. So basically these are some of the simpler things you can do. And of course, if you want to install the advanced aggregation and you feel brave enough, then you can give that a try as well. But the first part, which is basically about just turning on the cache and installing the the PHP cache and Memcache, those are the main things that will speed your site up. And of course, also help so that your page will do better in the rankings because of how quickly the pages are being served. Okay, so that's the end for the time being. So if you have any questions, then you can just leave them in the comment section below. And you can subscribe if you want to be notified of any other tutorials that I'll be doing. So I have a few sort of lined up that I'm thinking of or preparing. And so when I get the time, I'll get them out. Okay, see you.